next talk is from the NRCS Plant Materials Center. Ramona Garner is going to talk about the what's going on with the national NRCS program at the Plant Materials Center. Glad to have Ramona here. This national program the NRCS has is very important to cover crops, and we're going to hear the latest and greatest, I guess, Ramona.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm really glad to be here to talk to you a little bit about Plant Materials Program and what they're doing with cover crops. And I would like to think that everybody here knows everything there is about NRCS's Plant Materials Program. But I got a feeling there's a couple of you that don't. So I'm going to go through and give you a little bit of introduction. NRCS does operate 25 plant material centers. They are scattered out throughout the country. We like to think that they're been placed in some pretty unique and strategic locations, and we like to think that this enables us to evaluate different material, and we're able to look at how it's performing in different parts of the country and how we need to use things in different parts of the country. You guys have all heard of NRCS's Soil Health Initiative. Plant materials, we deal with plants, so obviously what we're looking at within that initiative are cover crops. The Plant Materials Centers actually, what they do is they support technology and evaluation of plants to support NRCS's conservation practice standards. What I like to think of, this is just mine, I like to think that the big ones for soil health are 340, which is cover crops, 328 conservation crop rotation, and 329, which is basically no-till. And of course what we're doing at the Plant Materials Centers is all in support of 340 or cover crops. I'll try not to use too many government stuff on you, but if I do, just yell at me. We know that there is a need for cover crops. NRCS over the last few years has done 1 million acres or more every year of cover crop of implementing the standard 240. We know that we feel like that's going to increase, and we want to make sure that we are able to meet that need. A little bit about cover crop activities at the Plant Materials Center. Currently, we figure about 50% of the PMC activities are dedicated to something to do with cover crops. They're looking at all kinds of things. They're looking at seeding rates, they're looking at seeding dates, they're looking at establishment methods, management, termination, methods, dates, all kinds of it. And then there's some of the soil soil properties. We get help from people to do that kind of thing. We're evaluating species and cultivars. We have warm season, cool season evaluations. We have traditional, non-traditional species. Paul, you must be like me. When I hear people talk about sun hemp being new, it's kind of a shocker, because Plant Materials has been working with sun hemp for over 25 years, and actually Tropic Sun, thank you very much, is a product of the Plant Materials Center in Hawaii. Just a little plug there if you don't mind. These are activities that the centers have that are in support of state or regional activities. They do those most of the time. They do these in conjunction with their technical people in the state or in their region. They develop these studies, and they're very applicable to that one region or state. Now, what we do have and what we started are national studies. They're managed nationally. They're all the same. We try to get as uniform as we possibly could. What we want to do with these is we want to be able to look at how these things are performing and how they compare to each other in different regions of the country. How they, there's all kinds of things. We got different temperatures. We got the growing degree days. We want to see how things react to all these different things. We do have 2 of those right now that are going on. We have what we call the National Cover Crop Study, and we have what we call the Cover Crop Adaptation Trial. Both of those are actually going on as I speak. The National Cover Crop Study, it is going on in 6 locations in the country. This is a really big study. I want to be sure and call out these guys' names because they have done a great job Bellotsville, Maryland, Brooksville, Florida, Ellsbury, Missouri, Bismarck, North Dakota, Pullman, Washington, and Lockford, California. They all have this study at their centers. You can see we have a pretty good distribution of area here. Pullman is up in the Palouse Valley, which is a very dry area. I know most people don't think of Washington as being dry, but when you get on that side, it is very dry. Lockford, California, which is a more Mediterranean climate. They're getting some really interesting stuff coming out of there. Bismarck, the north, is the northern plains. Ellsbury, Missouri is in the Mississippi River Basin. Then we have Florida, which is, I guess, technically coastal plain, but I can tell you that this site is like on the beach. I was down there and I'm telling these guys, what'd you do? Find the sandiest place you can find outside of the beach? But it's been very interesting. And then Bellotsville is here in the Mid-Atlantic coastal plain. What we're looking at basically here are two things: seeding rates and different mixes. We went through, we sat down with what was then the soil health team for NRCS. We all sat down in a room. We said, what do we need to know? What can we do? What can't we do? And how are we going to go about it? One thing I need to tell you, this study has been going on for 4 years now. We're in our 4th year. So some of the things you say, I want you to remember that when we did this, it was 5 years ago. This whole deal has changed quite a bit in the last 5 years. But I think we did moderately well. We looked at seeding rates. We looked at a lot of the recommendations out of the states. And, generally found that like 40 seed per square foot was about what we were getting. So what we did was we went 20 up and 20 down. Then we wanted to look at mixes. We looked at 3 different mixes. We have a rye and a crimson clover, which gives us a grass and a legume. Then we went down, we have 1 grass, 2 legumes, and then we added a broadleaf forb. Then we went down, we also have, the last one we had a grass, 2 legumes, 2 broadleaf forbs. Now I would like to have done all the different ones, but there's just no way we could do that. So we worked with the soil health team and we tried to come up with something that was doable. This is the data we're collecting. We have great partners on this. I tell you, I can't say enough about them. We don't do really a lot of soil things and don't have the capability to do it at our centers. But Dr. Haney with ARS has been really great. NRCS Soils Lab in Lincoln is also great. We send soil samples from these plots to both of those, and they're providing us this information. I also have to say Stephen Mursky here down in Bellotsville has provided us so much support on this as far as statistics and experimental design, and we're going to really hammer him when I ever get all my spreadsheets down. What we're looking at the PMCs, again, is the plant part. We're looking at biomass, percent live cover, really important for us because we need to know that that mix and that seeding rate is going to provide cover in a reasonable period of time in order to protect the soil. We are the former Soil Conservation Service. So we're looking at that. We're looking at species composition. When these guys go out and they take cover every 30 days, when they go out and take that cover, they also look at species. What is the species composition of that plot at that period of time? Hopefully that'll let us know what's going on with these mixes and then different species as time goes by. They're also, when they do biomass, when they do their clippings at what would be typically what we would call termination, they are partitioning the different species, and by weight at that period of time, we hope to be able to figure out who's contributing and who's there for the long haul. So it's just an interesting way to look at the mixes, I think, because what we're going to do is look at how everything is going on over time. The centers are also, they're looking at soil temperature and soil moisture. They're looking at that when they plant the cover crop, and they're looking at that when they plant the commodity crop. There was a lot of interest in this when we designed this study, so it got put in. They're also looking at the hardness, just, the penetrometer kind of thing, to see what's going on over time. Like I said, it's been going on for 4 years. We also have what's called our cover crop adaptation trial. The way this system works is we can design and come up with a study, and the PMCs decide whether they want to participate. Now, with the previous study, that wasn't the case. We were trying to keep that one a little more controlled, so we went through and asked certain centers to be involved. With this study, we went out to everybody, and I am really happy. 24 out of the 25 said we'd like to participate in this. So we've gone through, and they are looking at the same things at each one of these sites. I'm going to talk about what's in the national study, but each center also had the ability in this study to add things that were more unique or that they wanted to for their location of the country. What we're doing here is we're looking at cover crops. We went out, we tried to figure out which ones were in common use, which ones we could buy pretty easily. We always do that with our plant material studies. We try to get things that our producer or field offices can be able to buy pretty readily. We sent this list out. We asked some of our state agronomists, and we worked with them and came up with this list. We assigned one of these to different people. They went out and they tried to find out how many cultivars of these selected species that we could find. You can see here they found 6 crimson clover, 8 red, 2 balanza, 6 hairy vetch, 8 Austrian winter pea, 2 black oats, 11 cereal rye, and 8 daikon radish. So they're looking, they have just finished up. This is the first year of this. We're going to repeat it at least one more year. They're just starting to pull this. Every one of these I've been to is just amazing. I mean, I can give you an example. I was in Nevada, and this is over by Reno. The center there is by Reno, if you're familiar with the area. And I'm looking at the rye, and I'm like, wow, there's one of these that's just going crazy. It's Florida 401. That's the fun part of this. The other interesting thing here too is this went out to these people that were packaging and sending this seed out to all these centers all over the country. I started getting calls about, well, what are we going to do about the seeding rate? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because we've already agreed we're going to use a seeding rate that's recommended by your state or area extension, whatever. They're like, no. These seed sizes are all over the place. So what we started to do now, especially the centers in the east region are starting to do counts. What came out of this was every one of these cultivars has a different number of seeds per pound. With the rye cultivars, it is double in some of them. So you're planting, I don't want to say twice as much or twice as little as you need to from one cultivar to the other one. So what we're doing now, we're trying to assemble as many lots, because seed weight varies from year to year and from where it's grown and all that thing. So we're trying to get as many lots as we can get so that we can start to look at those seeding rates. It's like we're just making more work for ourselves, but I think this seed per pound thing is really important. As it's coming back now, my other centers are saying to me, well, crimson clover is the same way. You talk about Dixie. We've got different lots of Dixie that are all over the place. I'm not sure that Dixie is what Dixie was 70 years ago. Dixie was one of the first cultivars that crop science ever registered. We've got a lot of things going on with the seed. Maybe we need to make a selection out of Dixie, huh? I think they've already done that. The data they're collecting with this, they're looking at germination and field emergence. They're looking at canopy cover. We're looking at winter hardiness. Just remember that map. We've got these spread out everywhere. We're looking at spring green up, bloom and flowering time, height, biomass. The height thing is they're Same thing with cover every 30 days, so they're looking at height every 30 days, nitrogen content, and disease and insect resistance. What we want to do here is find these cultivars that fit where they're supposed to fit. Pieces to the puzzle. What works best in Washington? What works best in Florida? What works best in Missouri? Does the same thing work best everywhere, or do we need to make some adjustments there? Some of these breeding programs, I think they're going to fill those holes in. Hopefully we're going to find the holes and somebody's going to come in and help us fill the hole in. I think this is going to help us with our developing mixes, because you can take the information and develop those mixes where those cultivars mesh with each other as far as when they green up in the spring, or when they flower, where you don't have things all over the place. You can have a better chance of terminating things if they're all on the same cycle in the mix. We're really excited about doing some of this. I thank you again. Just gave you a quick overview of what the centers are doing. There's a lot of things they're doing, I'll admit, that I don't even know about, because it has gotten to be such a big thing. I see it in their reports, or some of them are kind enough to call me and say, you are not going to believe this, and so I get to hear about it that way. But it is an interesting time at the plant material centers. If you get a chance, visit one. Ask them, can you show us what you're doing with cover crops? Or what cover crops do you have growing here? Most of them, I know, Paul, you guys have a huge cover crop field day. I hope everybody's attending that. Almost every center now is starting to have cover crop field days. It's a good time to send people out and say, you can see what this looks like. So you have an invitation from me. Go out and look at this stuff at the plant material centers.
Do you have any information, observations, whatever, available? And if so, how can we get them?
We are holding out. The big study with the 6 centers, we were initially going to go 3 years with that. We have now gone 4. Actually, when we designed it where to go 3, but we set it up where it could go 6. I think, though, we're going to cut it loose. So I would say as soon as I get to put all that data on the spreadsheet, and I'm telling you guys, it is a ton of it, we're going to be able to see that. The adaptation, we're going to run it 1 more year. And you may see some of that start to float around. I kind of have, if we just say we're going to do 2 years, I kind of like to wait 2 years before we start putting it out, because you know how that is. You don't know what's going to happen. But I would say within the next 2 years, it'll all be out.
Are you suggesting that on the seed labels they should be seeds per pound instead of pounds per acre?
No, because I think, and the reason, now me personally, oh yeah, but as a farmer, I think they're more familiar with seeds per pound, and it's just a conversion. If I know what the seeds per pound are, I can convert it to pounds per acre. And I think it's just, for me, it's taking an educational step out. Maybe we need to educate, but in the meantime, we can just make a conversion.
But if we're working with the precision farming and things like that, it's
I would definitely do seeds per pound. And if you notice, a lot of the corn, soybeans, cotton, that kind of thing are going to that. Or plants per acre, you see a lot of.
I was curious about the outreach of the extension of the plant materials centers. You indicated at the end that you're willing to have some outreach.
Sure.
Could you go back to that slide? Could you go back? I don't remember where they all are.
Most of them are having field days. They have projects with local people, local universities.
Okay, so there's 4 of them in the Northeast then.
Yes.
So those states who are going to have projects might want to cooperate with or contact those centers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'd love to do that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that'd be a resource, so that'd be great, thanks.
Yeah, and it is a good place to go out and see that stuff growing. And that's That's one of the things we're trying to do is like demonstration wise, is just give people an opportunity to see some of the stuff.
Ramona, it's not a question to you, it's a question to everybody in this room. That two questions actually. If seed companies are already testing the seed, why don't they do a simple test of seed counts and put it on the tag? We send oats, clover, alfalfa samples out and get seed counts ourselves, and I know that it's such a simple test to send out and get done that the monetary figure is so small that why isn't that part of the typical seed testing? And the next point I want to bring up is many times so far here, the last couple of days, we've seen data collection. And it frustrates the hell out of me that we're trying to collect data on cover crop usage, and anybody that signed up with a farm service agency that has to report their crops they grow, to the farm service agency, to crop insurance entities, why don't we have to report cover crops? I asked this question to Secretary Thomas Vilsack a year ago, and well, it's not in the system. I asked this to my FSA office. Well, it's data collection. It's not in the system now. It would be, to me, a simple inclusion. Yeah, I'm sure, data collection, to set up the program to do it, but why don't they collect information on cover crop usage as they do normal crops?
That's a good point, and I hear from people. I had the slide about what we're doing with the conservation practice in 340. I hear rumors that only about 40% of the cover crops going in are related to NRCS's cover crop standard. So there's 60% of things out there we're not getting any track on. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond on the Farm Service Agency question. So I've been co-chairing a national working group on cover crops. Steve Groff is part of it. We've got about 18 people part of that group. And one of our recommendations, Don, was actually to get the Farm Service Agency to start collecting cover crop acreage data. So we've had, I think, 3 meetings now with some of the Farm Service Agency leadership. And they tell us that they have done a training for their staff to get them to start collecting that data. They've shown us some of the data they've collected. I would say it is extremely incomplete. So they've got some counties where the staff are doing it, and in probably the majority of counties, they're not doing it at all, or they're doing it inconsistently based on the farmer that's coming in and so on. So we're making some headway, but I agree with you that that would be very valuable if we can get them to do it consistently across all their locations. I think we eventually will get there. We do have the census data, that's much better, but it's only once every 5 years. So your point is well taken, and there are efforts to work on that. Yeah.